also saw from the Arizona Department of Transportation's, they had also brought up a camera image showing the smoke that was coming from that direction. I am going to give you a look at what it looks like from their camera, since our Skyfox keeps going in and out. Again, sometimes that happens with the feed. Comes in and out to us. So here is a look from the Arizona Department of Transportation camera. You can see much better as firefighters continue to work hard on the scene at that junkyard. Before it was big, black, thick smoke, and now, because of their efforts, that smoke has really gone down. Before, we were seeing it from miles away, and now it looks like they have extinguished a lot of those hot spots. And taking a look from above, you can see 5 different water hoses being used on this fire from above. Multiple different angles that they had to approach this from. And it does look like some of the streets around the fire trucks also are getting a little flooding, so obviously this area is going to be blocked off to traffic while firefighters are still putting this fire out. And for those of you who aren't living here in this area, today we are at 108. So it is a hot one out there. You can see the amount of equipment firefighters have to wear when they respond to these scenes. They're not only carrying their oxygen tanks, they have to wear all their safety gear as well. You can only imagine how hot it is, not only to be fighting and battling next to these flames, but then also battling the heat that our sun is bringing us here in the state of Arizona. And I do know my husband actually went to school for firefighting and was training with a station, and he did talk about how hot all of that equipment can be, especially when you are right there down on the ground, as we're getting a live look from Skyfox. And they have to cover every inch of this area to make sure they are keeping their eyes out for any of those hot spots, because we do know it only takes one small little fuel and fire to get it going again. So firefighters, I would expect, are going to be on scene for all the rest of this late afternoon. It is almost 4:30 here in Arizona time, so imagine that too. It's 108. It's right at the peak of that hot late afternoon hours as firefighters continue again to battle the fire that was here in the junkyard located just in Phoenix, Arizona. And again, if you didn't hear it before, you're familiar with this area. This was just off of 27th Avenue and Palm Lane. And it's a good sign when you see only one ladder truck still hosing down the area, others on the ground still hosing down much of the junk, as it's a junkyard, junk that is in that area. And just to give you a look while our Skycam is frozen for a quick second, look at that. Quite a difference when you're seeing the big plumes of smoke that are coming from miles away. We saw it, this is the Arizona Department of Transportation camera. We saw it from our mountain camera earlier. So it does seem like firefighters have been working hard here on the scene to obviously knock out this fire. And thanks for being patient with our Skyfox feed. This does happen every once in a while. I know earlier today we had some trouble because of some rain out in Connecticut that ruined some of the satellite feeds we were getting earlier this morning. And if our Skyfox doesn't come back here in a second, then we'll of course... Oh. You can see it's still a very active scene as smoke continues to come from this area. This junkyard, again, that was just off of 27th Avenue and Palm Lane. Firefighters quickly putting that out. I know dispatch must have had a lot of calls for how high and how thick that smoke was rising from this Phoenix area. I'm sure they were getting lots of phone calls. It's always great, though, when the public wants to make sure. It's better to call and know they already know about it than to not call and assume someone else is called. And you can see firefighters doing their due diligence as they continue to make their way through this junkyard. Some of it, because it looks like it's uneven ground, some of it flooded from all of that water they had to put on this fire to help knock it out. And again, right now, current temperature 108 degrees. That's gotta be quite a tough part of their job here in the Phoenix area, is battling not only the fire when you arrive on scene, but then the heat now that they have to be dealing with too. And again, our Skyfox feed just gonna go a little bit in and out on us as they circle this scene as we continue to keep our eyes on this junkyard fire that happened not too long ago. Just before, I believe, just after 4 p.m. So it's almost 4:30 here local Arizona time. And now if we take a look, you can see from the Arizona Department of Transportation camera, you can't really see and pinpoint a spot at all. So that's really good news for firefighters that they have knocked hopefully what would be a majority of that fire out. And hopefully there was no injuries from this incident as well. A lot of firefighters out on the ground helping at the scene, again, of a junkyard here in the Phoenix area where earlier black, thick smoke could be seen from miles away, and now it looks like they are just trying to make sure they go through every little bit of this junkyard before they can officially clear the scene and start the investigation. We saw multiple people tweeting and messaging us on Facebook with pictures and videos of smoke that, again, was coming from this junkyard but could be seen from miles away. It will be interesting, too, to hear as firefighters slowly make their way out of the junkyard and hopefully over to our crew that's on ground there, what they believe could be the cause of this fire. Usually the marshal, and they have the investigation that they have to conduct once it's safe to go through it. You never want to assume it started from something. They have to be very diligent with their, that's a hard word, diligent with their investigation process. And we'll just give Skyfox another quick second as we wait for our feed to come back. And while we're waiting for Skyfox to give us our look back, here's that look again from Arizona DOT camera, which now you can't even see any smoke coming from there whatsoever. And if I switch us on over to our tower cam, which I'm going to do here for us, there also, that is another angle that we had seen all of that thick smoke coming up from. So from past experience reporting out on this scene, at this point, this is when firefighters are walking around on location of whatever they might be responding to. In this case, it is a junkyard in the Phoenix area. They're going to be looking for anywhere where any flare-ups could happen, anywhere where it still might have some smoldering happening. So again, at a junkyard, it is going to be tougher for them to make sure they do have that whole area covered before leaving the scene, because you would hate to leave and then have to come back if something was smoldering and rekindled and restarted on fire again. I know I've talked to quite a few firefighters in my day, and that is one thing that they say they have to be very careful about, is making sure there's not any smoldering spots before they leave the scene. And again, the fire marshal is going to be coming out there and conducting the investigation along with investigators to pinpoint what exactly happened here, and hopefully others can learn from it in the future. And as I mentioned before, it is 108 degrees outside, and I can certainly say 108 feels hot, especially when you're standing under that hot sun. Obviously, these firefighters battling without any shade to be going underneath. And while our humidity is only at 8%, there is a difference between having a hot humidity and a dry heat. It still is a warm one out there, especially for how much protective gear these firefighters have to wear when they're out responding to fires. And Central Arizona does have an excessive heat warning that lasts until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Or it's in effect tomorrow, today, tomorrow, and then it goes to 8 p.m. And I think because firefighters do have that blaze nearly all knocked out, as they continue just to make their way through, make sure everything's wetted down at least once, we are going to be turning away from that, especially since our Skyfox feed continues to go in and out. As I had mentioned before, it is 108 degrees already today. It's been a hot few weeks, you guys. I think we've had over, I'd have to re-look at who from our station had tweeted that, but over a whole month of over 100 degrees. Tomorrow's supposed to be 113, and Wednesday a hot 115 degrees. And it does look like our reporter is going to be getting an interview, so I am going to jump on over to them on the ground.
Well, that was, yeah. Okay.
Especially these scrap yards, because we don't have anything where they're stacking in there.
Totally. I'm rolling. Just what happened here? Our name and all that.
Yeah, sure. My name's Danny Guile. I'm a captain with the Phoenix Fire Department.
Awesome. So can you take us through what happened?
Right, so we got a call in from the industrial yard behind us for a scrap fire that actually started. Our crews were able to get here. They found a well-involved fire that was moving very rapidly throughout the scrap yard. Crews were able to surround it and get in place very quickly and get water on the fire and prevent it from extending to the businesses that were nearby.
What were some of the challenges you guys faced today?
So anytime we get on these type of fires, obviously the fire load, there's so much fire load and scrap back there, and we don't know what's in there. We don't know what's in these scrap yards or recycle yards, so that's a challenge for us, and getting around the fire to get water on it is always a struggle. Our crews, fortunately, were able to do that very quickly and prevent it from spreading to those nearby businesses, but it does take a lot of resources to get around these fires and contain it so quickly.
Any word on what caused it?
We don't. That's obviously going to be under investigation by our fire investigators along with Phoenix PD, and they'll determine that.
How many firefighters were out there?
So we had a second alarm, which is upwards of 60 plus firefighters. And again, that's because of the size of the fire, the crews that it takes to get in and around the fire to contain it. And then also, obviously, this heat doesn't help us. And so working in this extreme heat, it shortens our work cycles, and our command presence, our command team does a very good job of making sure that we're only working for a short period of time so that we don't overexhaust and heat our guys out here.
So where's it at now? What's the latest?
So we've got the fire contained, and it's actually, we've got the fire contained to a small area, and we're just putting out hot spots is what we call them right now. So small fires that are located within the yard that we kind of have to move some machinery and stuff around to get to and contain.
Notice that you guys from aerials weren't just using water, you're using some type of a foam material.
Right, yeah. So we have some foam actually that we distribute in these fires because it helps curtain the fire. It puts a blanket of foam over on top of this fire, so the hot spots they help contain the fire so they don't ignite again. So that's just another tool that we use to help contain these large debris fires.
How are the firefighters doing? Anyone injured?
No, everyone's fine right now, and like I said, our biggest concern in this heat is obviously just our work cycles. We try to keep those short because you can overheat very quickly, so our command team does a good job of staying on top of that.
So we haven't gone down there yet, but we will after this. What is the situation over there? Is it a business that's a total loss, or what's the situation with the yard?
Right, so it's a large industrial area, and this was an open exterior yard. So again, we were able to contain it to that yard. It didn't affect any businesses, and as of right now, it's not going to close any businesses. So it's just the debris that was located in that yard.
No evacuations or anything like that?
No evacuations, and like I said, no businesses were affected in and around the area, which was great. And like I said, our guys did a great job of containing this, so it didn't affect anybody or anything over there in the way of a business perspective.
Does this start with a vehicle? Some kind of a...
You know what? That we don't know. Our crews just said when they arrived on scene, they had a large volume of fire and it was moving very quickly. So again, we're going to bring in investigators right now, and they'll team up with Phoenix PD and come up with figure out what exactly caused it.
Anything we missed?
I don't think so.
Just keep name and title again. Just put those.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Danny Guile. I'm a captain with the Phoenix Fire Department. DANNYGILE.
Thank you so much.
And as you heard,